Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Happening Dracut. We have a special show today. It is Saturday, August 5th, 2023, and we are here at our overly ostentatious studios located on Mill Street in Dracut, and we're having a little bit of a rocky start to this morning, but it's all good because we're in summer mode and we're just taking it easy and laid back. But we wanted to bring you another show, and in the house tonight or today we have the inevitable, the monster mash of basketball, youth basketball in Dracut, the Teflon Don of DATV, Gordy Scott in the house, Mr. Clean.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. I'm a little disappointed I'm not a millionaire. So.
You know what?
A millionaire from the Mega Millions.
You didn't hit the mega bucks last night.
No one won, so we're up to 1.6 billion.
Whoa! 1.6 billion. There's a lot of things we could do with that, right?
That's a boatload of money.
That's a boatload of money.
And I heard a rumor, John, if you won it, you would donate it all to the town of Dracut so they could spend it appropriately.
Yeah, right. No, if I won that, you could guarantee I'd be having a lawsuit against Dracut for a number of different reasons, just to change things here. But folks, we also have in the house tonight, or today, I got to remember that, it's morning.
It's morning.
This morning we have in the house our resident architect, a guy who is just knowledgeable of everything Dracut, especially about zoning. Can't get on the zoning board though, but here he is, Phil Thibault.
Good evening. Good morning. Jeez. Wow, I already had my extra large cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. I think I need another one.
We're gonna be making that mistake a few times.
Probably.
Folks, we're on Facebook Live, and we hope you can join us. Get in the fray. Give us some questions. Talk about what you think we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and let's talk about Dracut politics a little bit. But today we are coming to you here on a special day, and we will be re-showing this show during the week. We wanted to make sure we got one in the can, as they say in the business, so that we keep you informed as to what's going on in Dracut. Richard Silvio is off today. He's
special assignment.
He's on special assignment. He's doing some work with God. He's helping St. Francis today with some kind of a children's event, and I'm so glad that he's there because we need all the help we can get through the pearly gates here at What's Happening Dracut. So we will forge ahead without our ace reporter. Our show is here to give you information, and information you're not going to get anywhere else, and we're going to talk about all things Dracut, and we're even going to get into some national politics this morning. Please go to our Facebook page, What's Happening Dracut. Like us, follow us. We have had an enormous amount of action over the last 28 days. And, the anomaly is that we usually get, 13,000 interactions a month. And that's what we got last month in the last 28 days. We also hit a very milestone number, Phil.
We did?
We did.
Tell me.
3,000 followers.
Wow.
We have 3,000 followers now. Actually, 3,076, I think the number was. But the more important thing is the interactions. We're getting 13,000 average per month of people that come to our site, look at our stuff, and interact with us in a way, whether they like something or whether they just click on whatever. And that's a big number.
Absolutely, and I certainly our relationship with Inside Lowell
absolutely
has been beneficial, I think, for both organizations.
Yes. Thanks for bringing that up, Phil. Phil is a writer for Inside Lowell. What was your last story there, Phil?
It was called Indivisible. It was about local politics and how national politics have seemed to overshadowed local politics.
Yeah.
And as Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics are local. So it urges people on the local level to remain indivisible.
Right.
We are a community. We should remain a community even through national politics.
Right. The problem, Gordy, is that people the national news is so consumed with Donald Trump and everything. I mean, he sucks the air out of every campaign that's coming along. And just by the fact that we're going to get into it when we get to national politics, just by the fact that he's had his third indictment and he's looking for a fourth, you know? I mean, it's just ridiculous what they're doing. But we'll get into that later on in the show. But yes, my recent story was about the recent resignation of our school committee chairman, Joe Wilkie, which we'll get into later on also in the show. And, you know, that was a very well received in some quarters, not so much in other quarters because they don't like the truth to be told. And they don't like anybody's opinion to be out there saying what may be contrary to what they think is really happening. But there is an alternative world here in politics, both nationally and locally, right? Everything's supposed to be good. But we don't know. We're gonna find that out. I think I'm at the end of it. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, make our persona bigger, because there's not enough egos in this room. We need more. But anyways, at any rate, we have requests that you can make through our Facebook page, but we can also reach us on our by sending us an email. Send us what you'd like us to talk about and what have you. We don't have any weather tonight, or do we, Matt? I don't know if Sean sent in a graphic. He was supposed to. If he hasn't, then we're going to forge right ahead and move forward. Do we have any birthdays in the house? I think Jen turned 51. Wow, Jen! Happy birthday, Jen! And is she feeling any younger?
No, she's definitely not feeling any younger.
Yeah.
No, we had a good time. We just had a small party at the house with the kids, and it was good.
Good.
So, my bride of 30 years, her birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday!
So I guess the wives are having birthdays.
Yes. We got to have that. We got to put that out. We're not. I don't have any birthdays in my family other than, well, last month was my birthday, and I celebrated it for about a month. I tried to celebrate it.
When's the town of Dracut's birthday is coming up, isn't it?
February 26th.
Oh,
February 26th. And what year is it? 3-something.
300.
Yeah, I'd have to do the math very quickly.
It's a big number. It's a big number. But we've been around. Dracut was one of the towns that lost the most people in the Civil War. Am I correct?
It sent the most people per capita for the Revolutionary
War, and that's unbelievable.
Nearly half of the population went to fight in the Revolutionary War. Imagine that. So, Dracut is on the map in a number of ways, right? So, we know that one of our town fathers, Varnum, was Speaker of the House.
There you go, and it's a shame that Dracut has not honored him appropriately by having that award that they give out, the Varnum Award, go to somebody who was, instilled in Dracut in many years.
Yeah.
Instead, we just give it to a crony that blows into the town. Like I blew into the town 30 years ago. Are you a Dracuteer?
I blew in 25 years ago. And
Phil is the only Dracuteer here.
Well, so I've had discussions with people, and since I'm only second generation, I may still be considered a blow-in.
Get out.
In some circles.
But you were born here.
I was.
Okay, so you can't.
And
be
my
a
father
blow-in.
was born here. So, but again,
because your mother wasn't.
Some circles think that you have to go 3 generations before you're considered a native.
No, isn't that a little ridiculous?
So my sons are Dracut natives.
So then I can see why Joe DeRocco doesn't want you on any boards. Right? We can see exactly why. But so if you're not born in Dracut, you're a blow-in. So many people have been blown in here over the course of the years.
And to be honest, I've never really liked the term. I mean,
I don't like
these are people who choose to come to Dracut, whereas I'm born here. That's not really my choice.
No.
When I got married and we were looking for a place to live, certainly it was my choice to stay in Dracut.
But you also are very active in the town too. So there's a lot of things you do that are important to the town of Dracut. So let's talk about a couple of things, right? Do we have the Deputy Chartrand queued up to talk about Betty Ann Lane and the soccer field and the neighborhood? That's been a continuing continuing discussion, right?
So you want to cue that up? Like what's been the issue for people that haven't been
Yeah,
watching?
let's talk about that. Yeah, what's been going on up there?
So, in one of the lots, I think it was 167
Right.
Betty Ann Lane,
Right.
the gentleman who purchased the house paved a large portion of his backyard to develop a soccer field, if you want. And he has been advertising it, inviting groups from the South Shore and all around. And he has been selling
Food and drink.
food, refreshments and whatnot, and of course, all against zoning bylaw. And so the neighbors are reasonably up in arms about it.
Right, and it's much like he's running a business there, right? So there's been a lot of talk about it over the course of the last 6 months, and they have a spokesperson who is an attorney who speaks. Do you have that queued up on your screen?
Well, I have Chartran.
Okay, so anyways, during the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they have open comments, community input, and several of the neighbors got up and spoke about the issue, and the attorney that we're talking about, I think his name is Brian, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but anyways, he gets up and he gives an update, and
they've been going up, the town's been going up there and they said they've been very
cooperative,
and they're going to stop doing it, but it doesn't appear like they're stopped.
Yeah. So we have David Chartran, our Deputy Chief here, and Dracut gave an update before the Board of Selectmen. We're going to run that right now for you. It runs about 3 minutes.
To kick off our community input.
Can you switch us over,
Welcome,
Matt?
Deputy.
There you
Excuse
go.
me. 160. Thank you. 167. Thank you. Betty Ann.
Good evening, everybody. In regards to the issues that we've encountered at Betty Ann Lane, the Dracut Police Department received copies of videos that depicted activity at 167 Betty Ann Lane. The videos have been posted on TikTok by the wife of the homeowner. Detective Garish and Detective Lieutenant Melanakis painstakingly went through hours and hours of video. Detective Garish was able to identify key moments in the video and extract still photos. These videos have provided irrefutable evidence that the homeowners were engaging in the sale of food, water, snacks, and beer. Hand-to-hand cash transactions were observed. In one of the videos, the wife of the homeowner engages in a transaction with a male customer. She is referencing a document in front of her that appears to be a ledger. She tells the male that he owes money. The male claimed that he had already paid for the week. She then references some of the items that he had purchased. $15 for a plate of food, $1 for water, and the man was questioning his bill. She then replied, "You guys come, you guys buy, you buy." The man's bill was $96. He handed her a $100 bill and was provided change. On Tuesday, July 18th, Detective Lieutenant Melanakis and myself met with the homeowner and his wife. They were presented with our findings and shown photos of numerous transactions. They were advised that based on the evidence obtained, they could be subject to possible criminal charges. An agreement was reached whereby the homeowners immediately agreed to cease and desist all further organized volleyball games, soccer games, or large gatherings. A criminal complaint for the observed violations would be held in abeyance. They were advised that if the police are called to their home and there's any activity occurring that would be a violation of this agreement, a criminal complaint would be brought forward for prosecution through the courts. And the homeowners will be served written notice of this agreement and the consequences of any violations. So the agreement that was forged during that meeting is that all of the activity that was observed as far as the large organized games, the volleyball, the soccer, the gatherings of people, the transactions of food and beverage, it's all going to cease. So that's where we're at this point.
Thank you, Deputy.
Okay, bring it back to us, and That's very interesting, huh, Phil? They have a criminal event going on, and they're making a deal to try to keep it quelled until.
It's
some things
right.
get
It's
resolved.
remarkable. It's not just a zoning violation that they have there, but you typically would need a common victuals license. You would need a liquor license that would be granted by the Board of Selectmen, and all of that's going on. And it's like, well, okay, if you get your building permits in line, then everything just goes away.
Right, but the bottom line is, that's a neighborhood. This shouldn't be a business.
What
in the
bothers me
neighborhood.
though is they've already been contacted about this several times before because it's been at every selectmen's meeting.
Yeah.
And Vandal sent people up there, Board of Health up there, and they've already known this. They can't turn lights on. They've already been warned on all this stuff, and they continue to do it. So to me, this isn't good enough. They should be
Now, Phil,
be prosecuted.
Yeah, they should be. It shouldn't be just, you do this, 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 and then it'll go away. Kind of
Right.
sounds like.
Because
Kinda sounds like a
they've
Joe
been given
Biden
that
deal.
offer 3 or 4 times before, and they're not following it. So
Yeah, correct. Now, what about the fact, Phil, that the building inspector went in and discovered what looks like other people living in the building?
Well, that becomes a big issue. In Dracut, we have in-law unit suites, which are regulated by the zoning bylaw. If there's evidence that that those in-law suites have been made without the proper special permits, that work should be removed from the house.
Now, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you would think hire a contractor to remove the work that had been put in place.
How does the town prevent it, though? What steps can the town take?
So typically, that only comes to light when there's a complaint by a neighbor, honestly, because it's hard to see what's happening inside the house with essentially an in-law suite, which typically will have like a kitchenette for somebody, mother-in-law, father, or a caregiver, to be able to prepare some of their own meals. So it essentially becomes 2 kitchens, if you want.
Yeah, so they have a couple of kitchens in there. It's fine if you have family living in your house. There's no law against that, but the law is that you can't have a separate apartment for them.
Correct.
Collect rents.
Correct.
And without having an in-law apartment go through the.
Right, special permitting process, which is through the planning board.
well, that's my point of my comment earlier is who are these people and who do they know that they're getting all the special treatment? Because if John Zimini were to do this, I got a feeling you wouldn't be given 3 or 4 chances to make things right.
There's no way that a guy like anybody on this panel.
It sounds like national politics.
Yeah,
to me,
right.
like
There's 2 sets of laws.
2 sets of laws.
Right, but I'm not so sure.
I just hope that this is now going to set a precedent. So if anyone else does this, they're going to need to provide. They're going to have to bend over backwards for the same people.
Right, now, Phil, we've heard these things happen before, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't say that, there's a conspiracy behind here, because I think it's just sheer laziness.
It's what?
Sheer laziness,
Yeah.
It's easier to kind of help this guy get through and not look after the neighborhood than it is to look after the neighborhood and fight this guy.
That's a pretty nice neighborhood, too. And
It is.
Not to say that it shouldn't be held, the same standard shouldn't be held on all neighborhoods, and it should be held on all neighborhoods, but that's a pretty nice neighborhood with some pretty nice homes up there.
Oh,
And those
absolutely.
people have a right to be upset. Their whole neighborhood has been upset by this noise, traffic. Did this guy have the same situation in Lowell?
My understanding is through, I believe, a newspaper article that I had read that he came to Dracut from Lowell with the same sort of problem, that he was hosting these events which were against Lowell's zoning bylaws also.
Gordy, how could the police get so much information about the exchange of cash and the
Well,
purchases?
they were posting on TikTok, so they just pulled the videos off. Of
Oh,
TikTok.
they actually posted
Oh,
that?
you just had to look for it?
Yeah, just had to
Oh,
look for it.
okay.
Unbelievable.
But my point is they've given them chances, and I guess there's an agreement. But if they break that agreement again,
Which
You know what I mean?
it's
Like-
fine. I mean, anything to get what the neighborhood eventually wants to do, right?
No, but my point is if they were investigating, they would see this already happened in another town.
Right.
And just nip it in the butt right away. Start charging them, fining them.
Yeah.
And then that should be a deterrent.
It could have been taken
itself.
care of 3 months ago.
Right.
How big a
Correct.
deal, Phil, being the resident expert here on zoning and different things, is the wastewater issue of that huge slab that they have?
Well, I think you're talking about stormwater.
Stormwater.
Stormwater does become an issue because of the runoff that happens. The pavement itself contains oils.
Right.
So that oil gets leached off of the pavement a little bit, and then it gets trickled into the
Water supply.
into the aquifer
Groundwater.
that's up there,
Aquifer, yeah.
right?
So what happens with the mitigation of it? I mean, how, the manager continually talks about how she's working with them to try to get them to mitigate.
So it becomes a little more technical, but you would have drainage swales and forebays and stuff like that to kind of collect all of that, the oils and runoff sediment and leach them out of the water before it gets into the.
What's
into
that
the
going to
ground.
cost?
Well, it does cost money.
Yeah, it's going to cost
Plus,
a bunch.
plus it takes area from the yard to do that. So if the majority of the backyard is already pavement, where do you put these, forebays and drainage swales?
So we'll keep you updated on this issue, and if anybody in the neighborhood would like to join us, we'll be more than happy to have you come on and,
Testify for what's been going on.
talk about the issue up
Yeah.
there. And we've had contact with people, and they still want to try to work with the town, and that's a good thing. So Gordy, let's move on to the next subject. The next subject is the sandbar. You familiar with the sandbar?
Yes.
Have you ever eaten up there?
I did go when it was owned by the previous owners.
Okay.
It's since then been sold, but the traffic up there and the parking is
Horrific.
horrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
So Phil, the latest on that, on 39 Elm Street. What's going on up there? Have you heard much about it other than what you see on?
No, just mostly what I see on the, on the news and what
Yep.
you catch on Facebook and such.
Sure.
I mean, so the sandbar, which was formerly the shoreline, which was formerly the fleur-de-lis.
Correct.
So it was essentially a club, if you want, that hosted an area for people to go swimming and gatherings and such, and there was had a small area for food and beverages and such like that. But its main purpose was to provide essentially like a summer club that people could go swimming. And at that point, they didn't have
They have
all
a
the
dock
docks.
where you can-
They didn't have. Well, no, they didn't really. I don't think
Back-
they had
They didn't have
docks
docks,
when
no.
when it was the fleur-de-lis. It was really a place for people to go swimming. There was like a boat launch that you could access,
But that's a public boat launch.
but that is a public boat launch.
Yep. So they can't control that.
And so, as a club, it was run as a not-for-profit organization, and because all the owners subsequent to that have been essentially just piggybacking off of that thought that it's a club. The sandbar and the shoreline have been supposedly operated as a not-for-profit organization.
Now, how can that be, Gordy, when they're advertising, come to our place for dinner? I mean, you get those little packets in the mail, right? The value pack?
And I remember when I went in there, again, it was the previous owner, but they said you have to become a member, but we'll give you a free trial, like you can come in and eat, and then they try to sell the member package to you, but you didn't have to purchase
Yeah,
it.
but now the new owners, Phil, they're charging a membership fee, or they were.
Well, they were, but I recently got one of those value packs
Yeah.
in the mail, and it had a coupon in there for a free membership.
So at what point does the building inspector and the town itself, and I assume the building inspector controls this, or the Board of Health also?
The Board of Health would have control over essentially the
common victual.
the common victuals license, the food preparation and such.
Do they have a common victular license?
I believe they have to.
Even if they're a
Even if-
nonprofit,
yeah.
yeah. As long as they have a kitchen.
Right.
They have to go by all those rules.
Correct.
Do they also pay sales tax?
That I don't know. I mean,
Food, they should have to pay the food tax, yeah.
It's a not-for-profit organization, so they should have a tax exemption. I mean, so when as a not-for-profit organization, DATV, when they did the build-out of the studios, we did not have to pay sales tax on any of the merchandise that we were buying because we're not-for-profit.
But that's a local tax, the food tax.
No, that's a sales tax.
So what are the major issues up there for the neighborhood? Parking, noise,
So
people coming out of the place peeing on somebody's lawn.
Yeah, so parking is interesting because if everything is being controlled by Dracut, the zoning bylaws in Dracut require a parking space for every 3 members
Okay.
of the organization. Well, how many members are there?
Has that question ever
I
been
don't
asked?
know if that's ever been
Publicized.
determined or
They
know
should
by,
have to
by
fill
the town.
paperwork though, as a
But
nonprofit, they should have to show.
But
how many
apparently,
members.
when they were giving away free memberships, I would say that the memberships are essentially unlimited. And then, does the parking requirement need to become unlimited?
Right.
Divided by 3.
Divided by 3, which
Right.
means
So there isn't enough parking in the world to supply enough parking. But I mean, clearly they within the lot that is adjacent to the sandbar, there's 30 spaces, maybe a few more. Then they started parking in Tingsboro itself on at a different house lot or an undeveloped lot. But that area in Tingsboro is zoned residential.
Right.
Now, you can't use a residential zone for parking of a commercial use.
okay.
So they shouldn't be parking there. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Tingsboro is going to be cracking down on it, but they might.
Did you hear or see the last Board of Selectmen meeting where the owners and his 2 sons came up and spoke? What was your impression of them?
They should not have been speaking in that particular way. And one particular thing really stuck out to me is that one of the sons was speaking regarding a parking lot attendant that the Board of Selectmen has required them to have at peak hours. And what was said was that the Sandbar has spent $750 to $1,000 a week
On a parking?
to hire this parking lot attendant, and the neighbors aren't appreciating it.
Wow.
That just struck me like a toothache. It's like, ooh,
I thought that came across a little arrogant, to be honest.
very arrogant.
But what do you think, Gordy, of the manager, town manager Ann Vandal, takes her staff to lunch at the Sandbar?
That's not a good look.
Is that a perception that you want as the manager who has the neighborhood fighting with the town?
I mean, would you want
And
to
the
live?
Board of
Would you want to
Selectmen-
live near there? I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's just you can barely get by on the road.
Yeah, I have been up there, yeah.
Because there's parking on both sides of the street.
The-
Only
right,
one
the-
car can get through at a
The
time.
paved
It's got to be a
street
fire
is-
hazard.
Right, the paved street is maybe 18 feet wide at its widest
What happens
point.
if there's a fire? How does the fire truck get down there?
Well, they had a case where an ambulance was called, and the ambulance couldn't leave because of the traffic.
So
It was being blocked.
I don't. I mean, it's great that they want to have that, but I just don't think it's the right look. You got to get it outside that. I don't know if there is any non-residential area around the lake, but maybe up Mammoth Road or Nashville Road somewhere. But
Well, I think it requires the town to
To
determine,
rezone it, yeah.
is this truly a club or is this a business?
Business.
And are they using the club as a ruse?
I
I,
it's pretty apparent.
our Dracut Economic Development Facebook page has been advertising for the Sandbar,
I just-
which I find amazing. Until you get everything kind of straightened out, you kind of pull that back.
But if they lived up there, lived next to it, I don't think they'd be.
But I was just floored when I heard that the manager took I mean, you're putting money in the pocket of the people that I get it, spread it around, but there's not other restaurants you can bring it to. That is the seat of controversy in the town, and there's a lot of people over there that that are upset by it.
And honestly, one of the furthest points from town hall, if you're taking people from town hall,
Yeah, exactly.
it's going to take you 20 minutes to get there.
Did you notice, though, that when the managers and the owner was up there talking, there was a lot of people in the audience this time that were in favor of it, that don't live on the street, that live across the
Right, I mean, I'm sure if you live across the lake, you like to go pull your boat up,
Right.
go have a few drinks with friends, and it's great for that. But
Now look, I'm not opposed to having a restaurant there. I'm not opposed to have people having, an enjoyable
Right.
evening on the lake. What I'm opposed to is the disruption it's causing for the neighborhood, and it seems as though it keeps getting swept off to the side.
Yeah, and again, I think it all gets back to, is this a club, or is this or is it a business, a restaurant business?
Now, what do you think of the issue where some of the neighbors, and we have contact with some of the neighbors, they contact us and talk to us and tell us some of the stuff that's going on. So there's some confidentiality there that we're not going to reveal, but one neighbor particularly said that, I recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, that, the police are called, and when they get there, the issue is gone because it takes so long for Dracut police to get there. And then some of the investigations are done at 10 o'clock in the morning when there's nobody there.
sounds like you have to start videotaping,
Well, they have.
posting on TikTok, and then send it to the police department.
Yeah.
Say, here's what it,
Well, they have been, the neighborhood has done some videotaping of that up there, and there's a lot of activity going on with the neighborhood keeping track of what's going on up there. But again, by the time the police get there, the guy peeing on the lawn is gone.
Right.
And nobody, they take the video, but they can't identify the person. Somebody said it was an employee of the place. Why not, Phil, that they just go up there, or Gordy, two of you can say that. Why didn't the owner, instead of castigating and disparaging the neighborhood, why not saying, hey, we took care of that problem, we fired that employee? Nobody knows who the employee is, right?
Right.
If you're gonna tell fibs, you might as well go the whole route.
Right, you might as well try to make yourself look good.
Yeah, but they didn't do that. It's just amazing. We have a lot of activity
Yeah, I
on.
think there's-
Go ahead, Phil.
There is a comment, and I would need to put my glasses on for this one.
Okay,
I
which
think.
one from Kelly Lynn Ann?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, anybody wanting to visit the lake with their own water? What? Vehicle has 0 parking, and that needs to be taken into consideration, as well as for the parking issues. Neither Tingsboro or Dracut have provided residents with any parking. Well, I don't know what that's all about, what that means, if you can be a little clearer maybe.
Yeah, but clearly, it as we said, the width of the pavement for the street.
That's the
Elm
biggest
Street,
issue.
I mean,
Yeah.
only like I said, 18 feet wide at its widest. I think the throat when you actually go down Elm Street is probably 12 feet wide because you go up a hill and then you come back down.
Right, and then when people park, even though they're parking in the grass, and then if you own the house next to the road and people are parking in your grass, the grass dies.
Right. So the residents are trying to park on their own property. They're parking in the grass.
Sure.
And then they have the patrons of the sandbar that are trying to do the same thing, except now you're parking on somebody's property.
Right.
Yeah.
It causes a whole host of problems.
Well, we just want to let you know that we are live on Facebook right now, and it's Saturday.
So
August 5th.
there's a clarification that,
Yeah.
I think we had mentioned it about the public boat launch.
Yes.
Which is in that same area. So, where are these people parking
Right.
their vehicles as they send their boats in, and then they have to move their vehicle somewhere else, and where they do it?
Yeah, and there's no parking for them at all.
No.
None, which is another problem. Maybe they need to get the conservationists up there or something. Somebody who controls the boat ramp.
I think that's in Tingsboro, so it's a Tingsboro boat.
So,
ramp.
but who would have control of that waterway?
Tingsboro, it's
police?
a right of way, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So maybe they have to be more proactive up there.
And they're trying to keep their hands clean of it because
Oh,
they
yeah,
don't want any part of the mess.
Yeah. But we're here on Facebook and we're live, and we're going to rebroadcast this show during the week so you can catch it again, or you can tell your friends that this show was being
But
live
thank you
right
for
now.
writing back to us, because that's how we get the information.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much for all of that. So we're going to move on to the next issue, right? And that has to do with the Murphy Farm and the building going on up at Murphy Farm, and that's located where, Phil? Tell the folks where that's at.
That's located in East Dracut, pretty much right on the Methuen border,
Off of Wheeler Road?
off of Wheeler Road and Wheeler Street.
Yeah.
They do converge at one point. It's very close to that area.
Now, how would somebody access that property? Because it's kind of, I've been by there a few times, and it feels as though there's a lot of homes built around there. There's a lot of farms up there.
There are. Poppy Lane, I believe, is one of the streets
Right.
off of Rinsey, I think it is. Wilshire.
Elizabeth Drive, too?
Elizabeth Drive.
Yeah, so those are all like cul-de-sacs or whatever.
That's correct. Cul-de-sacs with 1 acre lot zoning.
So at the end of that cul-de-sac, there must be a right-of-way to get into there.
Typically, when a cul-de-sac is made and there's other property beyond it, there's provisions to allow them to go through, essentially.
So we brought up the subject of the town manager and sending an email to members of the Board of Selectmen to encourage them to meet with Mr. Murphy, Mr. O'Brien, the builder, and to meet with them so that they can get more information. But we questioned the ethics of that, right? And I think Joe DeRocco made a comment during the last meeting about that he checked with ethics and their lawyers and all this stuff. It seems as though, Phil, we're driving a bus here, right? And that's okay. That's okay, because ethics isn't, and conflicts of interest and ethics is not all what it must, what you're actually doing. It's perception,
Sometimes
right?
it's perception.
It's not a good look, right?
Right.
So you think it's a good look for Joe DeRocco to meet with O'Brien one-on-one, privately, in a setting where, you don't know what could happen?
Nor is it, I think, appropriate that they kind of daisy chain these things, meetings together, so all the selectmen can meet with the developer on a private basis, so that they're all on the same page. I don't know.
Well, we know that at least two have not met with the
Yes.
privately. We know that Phil, what a Freudian slip that was as a selectman. We know that Tony Archinsky actually took the occasion to bring the anti-development group.
Yes, some of his
Go ahead, tell us about
some
that.
of his constituency. Yeah.
Had asked him to.
Yeah, so
Reach out.
Right, reach out so they could kind of coordinate a meeting, just so they could, abreast each other of what they were planning on doing.
Right, and that's okay. That's part of what I believe is a selectman's job, is to do constituents work where you bring them to somebody, or you have a meeting set up where somebody can get to come to the meeting and to maybe allay some of the fears, or get questions asked that they won't get asked at a Board of Selectmen meeting. But in my years, I never met privately with any developer, nor would I ever, because the perception.
Right.
What do you think? What can come out of that?
Well, I've seen issues. Actually, there was a detailing. The guy that the person that owns the car dealership on 110, he purchased it's a small little shed kind of thing where he does auto repairs and stuff in my neighborhood. So I remember the selectmen came down, but they all came down together, and it was kind of and then the neighbors gathered, and we said, hey, we have people coming in and out of here. What's the traffic going to be? But it is a pretty small place. He does detailing, small car repair. And at the end of the day, it wasn't an issue. Once everyone went down there, I was concerned because I went down there. I remember Tony Archinsky. I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be an issue. We're talking like 2 or 3 cars per day, so it's not even going to notice it. But in that kind of setting, I think that kind of stuff is good because the public, it's basically a public thing. They're all coming down, we're taking a look, walking with the neighbors. They can ask questions with the owner of the business. And by doing that, when you first hear it, you're like, geez, I don't want that. But after you talk to the business owner, and he's like, oh, it's going to be like 2 or 3 cars, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal.
I noticed on our Facebook page this morning that the sandbar is actually watching us. Trying to back up a little bit. And look, they have an invitation to reach out to us, send us an email or a text, or even a comment. Come on the show. We'll hit you with questions, and we'll get some of the neighbors to talk to you. Maybe we can have a live,
Debate.
town meeting.
Town meeting, yeah.
A town meeting type show where we invite the neighbors to come in and they can interact with the
Right.
with the
We can mediate a
we
conversation.
can mediate a conversation. So if you're interested in that, we're most interested in accommodating you, the Sandbar. We don't want to stifle business. We want business to expand and grow in our community, but we want you to be friendly to the neighborhood. And of course,
That's
the
all.
neighborhood knew for years that club was there. So I don't want to back up a little bit, but I did want to just say that if anybody wants, if they want to come on, the owners, and we can get a group of the actual neighbors that are complaining to come in and sit in a town hall.
Right.
And we'll put some of the people who support them.
Absolutely.
We'll do it like a
Yeah.
town hall
Right.
that like Fox does.
Right.
Right? We could do that right here in the studio. So we'd love to have that. Let's talk about that. So let's get back to the Murphy Farm issue. So Murphy Farm, the Murphy Farm issue and the O'Brien builders have now submitted and got approval from Mass Housing.
That's correct. So
Right.
sometimes that's referred to as the golden ticket. That
Right.
allows you to now go to the town, the ZBA, and go for your comprehensive permit. Comprehensive means that everything is essentially done through one board only, and that's the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So that tells me that O'Brien is seeking funding from Mass Housing, probably seeking his construction loans through Mass Housing, and they will partner with them, and they will help, because I work for Mass Housing, so I know a little bit about this issue. So they will partner with the O'Brien builders, and as a result, they will have to, under the 40B law, as you know, Phil, you can get into it more than I can, but they will now have a certain amount of those, numbers of those apartments will be under 40B.
Correct. So that means that 25% are going to be deemed affordable. So out of the 300 that are being proposed, there's 75 that need to be deemed affordable, which means that it has to do with median income in the metropolitan area that you're associated with, which is Lowell. And it essentially caps the rent at an affordable rate, not a low income rate, but an affordable rate.
So what would you, we don't know this for fact, right? So but what would an affordable unit go for, say?
A four-bedroom
Four-bedroom.
affordable unit,
Currently in Dracut, like
I mean,
2,500?
I would think it's going to be in that range somewhere for
1,800?
for four-bedroom.
Yeah, if you're in Boston, a four-bedroom apartment's gonna be much more than
I
that.
do know in North Billerica, because my son's staying in a place.
Yep.
The affordable rate is $1,300 for a one-bedroom.
For one bedroom.
It's
Can you imagine that?
$1,300.
Yeah. So there's a huge difference between.
It's about half. It's about half to 60%
Yeah,
of what the normal rate is,
right. And
in generally speaking.
so, but you also have to be income
Yes,
eligible for
you
it.
have to-
And it's
right,
based on your income.
Correct.
But whereas when we talk about, politicians like to say, well, we're going to build affordable housing over here, but it's not low income. It's not housing authority.
Right.
Where they only take 30% of your income.
Good thing that you mentioned that. We have a viewer right now, Charlene, who is saying, could we explain the difference between affordable and low income?
Go ahead, Phil.
Which is interesting. So affordable means that your family or you are making 80% of the median income in the area, and you pay it proportionally based on that. Low income means that you're in poverty, essentially, and you're only paying 30% of your income to housing.
Right. And no developer, no private development can do the lowest end and survive.
That's correct. So you always need a blend. So even if you're doing a low income development, I believe the Richardson Farm was done as a low income through CTI.
Yeah.
You need to have a fair amount of market rate to compensate because you need it to balance out.
Correct, right. Charlene also said that the type of meeting that I suggested between the Sandbar owners and the neighborhood would be a great service to our citizen watchers and listeners. And thank you, Charlene, for watching. We appreciate you being part of our conversation here. We appreciate everybody. Whoever wants to make a comment, we're willing to try to throw it out.
If you
there
don't
and
agree
talk.
with us,
That's fine. We're open to
okay.
anybody that doesn't agree with us also. So It's going to be an interesting thing going forward because now that 40B plan has been submitted to the town.
It has. It has not changed significantly from what I see. It was just released late this past week, so I haven't been able to go through the whole thing myself. But it looks predominantly the same that he had submitted to the state. So
These are not homeowners or condos?
no, these are rental.
And how many units is he proposing?
300, all of which are 4-bedroom.
And how many buildings?
47, 48.
48
Yeah.
buildings?
So they're congregated in buildings of 5 dwelling units and 7 dwelling units, and I think there's 1 duplex in that mix also. It shows for 2 public buildings if you want, or for gathering spaces for the tenants. There's a pool that was shown on the site plan. So I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out within those plans, and the ZBA is going to have quite the task.
So what kind of an impact are we talking about on the town in terms of the population, student population increasing, which all goes into what we're going to talk about later on in the tri-board meetings. But what kind of an impact would that create for the town in terms of
Well, obviously,
services?
it'll be an increase, but I think the people that are reacting to this are overreacting because it's usually not as bad as you think it's going to be. It will definitely make a change. There'll be more students in the school system, but you don't know because maybe those people, if they can afford a 4-bedroom apartment, maybe they can afford to send their kids to private school, maybe,
Right.
right? So you don't know exactly what's going to happen. I think people tend to overreact.
Right.
Knee-jerk reaction is overreaction, and when it comes to reality, it's about 50% of what you think it's going to be.
Well, it's the NIMBY effect, right?
And yeah, I mean, there's to some degree there's that issue that needs to be addressed by the town too. And I, to be honest, I thought the town was trying to address that through a reform of the zoning bylaw. Excuse me.
God bless you. God bless you, Phil, 'cause somebody has to. So go ahead, Phil.
But
more in
I
me.
just think it's a big issue because I don't know how much interest there's going to be in 4-bedroom apartments. I just don't get
Well,
it.
this is all part of drawing in
3 and 4
people
bedroom
from
apartments. There's
from
not a lot
urban
of
units
people
to
that
suburban units.
Yeah, people don't buy that. It's like 1 and 2 bedrooms usually. If you look,
So usually the mix, and I've worked on 40B projects in the past, and the mix that the state usually wants is 10%. 20% 1-bedroom, 60% 2-bedroom, and 20% 3-bedroom. They really never even delve into 4-bedroom units.
So this is
though they can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's significant that they're all done as 4-bedroom units.
So Catherine Minichello, I hope I pronounced that right, Catherine, is living in an affordable unit, 2-bedroom unit with 2 baths, and she's currently paying about $1,500.
Okay,
That's a
She does mention Londonderry, New Hampshire, but still, housing costs up in New Hampshire are fairly high
right,
too.
right. And when you think about it, that $1,500 is a lot a lot because. You know,
It'd be interesting if she could tell us what the square footage of her unit is.
yeah,
Because I would bet the square footage of that unit is probably about 750 square feet.
that's small
They're affordable.
for a 2-bedroom apartment.
It is.
So Phil, what's the economic effect for Dracut with a 300 unit?
Unfortunately, its location is what is fairly detrimental to, I think, the project and
Yeah.
its impact on Dracut economically, because these people are not going to be shopping in local stores in Dracut. They're on the Methuen border.
Right.
They're really far away from any sort of shopping amenity or other businesses. So I tend to think any business that would be derived from a lot of these people is going to be going to Methuen.
or Salem, maybe, right?
But Mal, what I wanted to figure out or try to get a hold on is how much taxes will we gain from this project?
Right.
How big of a project? How many millions of dollars? Is it a $100 million project to build those many units?
I have to admit, I haven't really gone through a number. It's certainly
It's
in that.
significant.
It's significant.
It's going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the which would, in itself, have a good economic tax result, but it would not be enough taxes to
offset
support
the
four
expenses.
kids or three kids.
Correct.
out of that
So
in
what?
the
Right.
schools.
What's the burden that's realized by the town in fire
Correct.
services that would be
Correct.
offset by those taxes?
So we're going to.
Catherine has mentioned that approximately 1,100 square feet.
Yeah,
A good-
1,100
Wow,
square
that's
feet.
good
A good
size.
size unit.
Wow, that is a good size unit. So we're going to move on to the next subject because we could beat this around for a long time. But we'll
we'll
have
keep an
more.
eye on it.
We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll have
So
more.
before I started choking, I just want to get into the point
Yeah.
that Dracut right now is going through a zoning bylaw review. Essentially, our zoning bylaws have not been updated since 1985. And they were going along pretty good until I feel the change in some of the membership, in particular the change in the selectmen representative.
Okay.
Because it seemed, in my eyes, it is now taking a step backward because the selectman representative, Allison Genest, is opposed to realigning some of the residential zoning, diminishing some of the lot sizes that would be required. She seems to be wanting to have more special permits granted by the Board of Selectmen rather than less. And she has suggested that, well, okay, since the Board of Selectmen doesn't really do the planning, they could go to the planning board for a recommendation and send that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So now we've just added additional steps to any business that wants to come into town. And
So when you're talking about a business-friendly community, by adding more bureaucracy in the line
not
of
there.
fire,
not there.
you're killing any economic development.
absolutely
The
so.
Board of Selectmen should have the least amount of involvement in any development that comes in town.
Right.
Just encouraging people to come. By putting more steps in it,
Yeah,
it's just, it's obnoxious. Renee Young said, who's a member of the school committee, by
Yep.
the way. Hi, Renee, we're glad that you're watching. She says the projections show that we're gonna need an additional fire station and more school space, obviously.
yeah, I'm not sure where they're getting an additional fire station from because fire stations are located based on response time. And
Right.
the way that the stations are laid out right now, I believe that any area, for the most part, any area in Dracut can be reached by a first responder within 5 minutes.
There's
or
a
so.
relatively new station over there on Broadway Road, right there that would be close
The
to.
Jones Ave
that near
station.
yeah, that Jones Ave
Well,
station.
relative, it's well over 20 years old.
Right. Can you believe that? I can't
Believe
believe
it or not.
it's
but-
20 years old.
Yes, but so they would be responding to
This area.
Murphy Farm. Mind you, there's a lot of houses for them now to respond to.
Yeah.
Currently, our Collinsville station is the busiest because of the density of the
Yeah.
housing in that location. This certainly
Would increase.
makes Jones Ave busier.
Yeah, and the project's already there's already projects on the docket, Renee says, and it's true, for a middle school as well, and
Yep.
amongst other things. So, yeah, we're going to get into that in a minute about overrides that are going to be needed for those schools as well as operating expenses. But we're going to move on. We posted last month that the Genest's house was up for sale. And we got some pushback from people.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay. We're good about that. I'm sure they're probably friends of the Genests, so they spur them to push back. So we posted that their house was for sale. You don't know. We want to do we know if they're moving out of town? Nobody knows yet to this moment whether or not they're moving out of town. But we have some sources that say, no, they're not moving out of town. They're actually downsizing and they're moving into another place.
I thought maybe they were offended by all the activity over at Beaverbrook Farm, and it's just too busy for them now.
Yeah, maybe she'll be less involved
leaving
in
the
that.
neighborhood now.
Maybe she'll be less involved in Beaverbrook Farm now that she's moving. Who knows where she's moving? Maybe she's moving into Beaverbrook Farm. That house seemed to be
Well, it's a
available
two- it's
at
a
one
two-family.
point.
It's
It's
a
a
two-family.
two-family. Who knows? I'm just speculating. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But that house was sold, and they're going to be moving on their way. Very interesting, huh? So the pushback on that was that why did we expose somebody's address.
It's public.
Public
knowledge
record.
on Zillow. Go to Zillow and
It's
houses
public
for
record.
sale in
But
Dracut. You're gonna find it.
They both of them. There's not even an instance here like your wife is a private individual, but you're perceived as a public person. I'm perceived as a public person, not my wife, but I am. But my address was always put out there, and where my kids went to school, and and all that kind of stuff. But
Show up at town meeting.
Yeah,
If
show
you
up
want to
at-
speak, and what do you have to do?
you have to give your address.
You have to give
But
your address.
folks. When you go to vote, their address is on the ballot.
Yeah, right.
Your address is on the ballot when you run. So I mean, that's all stuff that people don't want. They want to be in public life, but they don't want people to know what they're doing. And that's just not the way it is today, because as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on with the Bidens that, because of his brand, Hunter is gaining, and so is the family gaining by the president's the president's brand. But let's move on to the corner of Bridge Street, Arlington, and Pleasant Street. There's a lot of activity.
A
over
lot of activity
there,
there.
right?
There's a
So the meeting house and all that, the church there is right there, and there's
Yep, Yellow
Wendy's, and there's a real estate office, and then there's the time capsule,
Yeah.
all in that convergence. What's going on, Phil? There's lots of rumors.
And Eddie Ayotte has
Yes.
J&J.
Yep.
J&J, I'm not
AC,
sure if it's
air
ma-
conditioning?
Yeah, air
J&J
conditioning. A very good businessman in town, does a lot of work.
Yeah.
Does very good quality work.
So
But he has owned that large parcel of land over there, including a couple of houses. Well, people probably have seen that those houses have been torn down, and now there's a big hole in the ground.
did you just say something complimentary about Eddie Ayotte?
Yeah.
And now, would you ever hear that out of Eddie Ayotte's mouth or out of Joe DeRocco's mouth, his best friend, by the way?
Well, I don't know.
When
I don't
it
know
comes
about
to you.
I don't know about Joe, but I've had conversations with Eddie.
What kind of a guy are you? You're not mad that he was holding
No, as a
signs
matter of
against
fact,
you?
I've pointed clients in his direction
There
to
you
say,
go.
hey, he does good work. I mean,
Yeah.
I will always separate my profession from my politics, because they should not mix.
Did you like the
Did you?
fact?
I'll just throw this out.
Yeah.
Did you know I actually did work for a former selectman that we were kind of on opposite sides?
Oh, I think you were greatly on opposite sides, wasn't? And that was Jesse Forcier.
Jesse
right?
Forcier, I
And-
did some
and
work on his house.
when he
yeah,
built
for,
that
for,
house.
for his contractor. Yeah.
Yeah. Down, and he's now in Methuen. He's
He's
right
now in
on the
Methuen, yeah.
Methuen line,
Yeah.
but he's down in Methuen
Yeah.
off of Wheeler Road or whatever, Wheeler Street. But getting back to this Eddie Ayotte thing, right? So we're going to slide
So,
this.
so he's doing a fairly large.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I haven't seen the plans. I really probably shouldn't refer to it as like a strip mall, but it's a fairly large building, mixed use.
Yeah.
And when I say mixed use, mixed tenants, I believe, because his business will still, I believe, is still remaining there. He'll
Yeah.
be taking up one of the spots.
But he was upset when Wendy's was proposing to do something, right?
Yes. So the property owner of Wendy's purchased the old Coburn house, which was the older house or Mayall house beside it, and that has been torn down. And
That's
they're going to be
that was all boarded up.
so they're going to be expanding, essentially expanding that lot, which is on the corner of Bridge Street and Arlington, to do a new Wendy's.
And
Another separate building, which is looking to housing a Starbucks.
so that's going to be an interesting corner there.
It is.
Starbucks. I don't
Yeah.
like Starbucks being that close to my house because my wife is going to be driving me crazy. But
Well,
that's okay.
I would say it's nice that Dracut will have another option besides Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin'
coffee.
Donuts on every street corner. But wasn't it interesting to you, if you watched the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they were talking about raising the permit fees, which we're going to slide this into
Yep,
now.
building permit fees.
And the building permit fees were going to be raised. And who was up there complaining about the building permits being raised? None other than Eddie Ayotte, because he's got that big project going on and he's in the middle of it. Right? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see
You didn't, but you did.
Yes. So his particular take on it, and I agree with it, that if your project is in the process of being renewed and the fees have not been set yet, you should be grandfathered to the older fees. I would agree with that. You've submitted your package.
But they kind, I agree too, but it's kind of, that subject would have never came up if Eddie Ayotte didn't go up there. So Eddie Ayotte, who's
you could be right.
good friends with Joe DeRocco, gets up there and now he gets grandfathered in. Basically is what happened.
Well, and likewise, I would hope that anybody else in the same situation would be grandfathered in.
Well, I hope so.
I would hope so.
We'll see what happens. I
Yeah.
want to see that in writing, and the manager mentioned that that's probably right to do, but I don't know if that'll hold true. So now, does that mean that any permits he pulls going forward on that particular property, he'll be grandfathered in, or will there be a point where?
Typically, there is, for a project like this, you would have an overall building permit, and then all of the other disciplines would have to pull their own permits. So you would have to have a plumbing permit, an electrical permit, and a mechanical permit.
So all those
and
permits will be-
sprinklers would be a separate
For
permit.
this particular project, all those permits will be at the lower rate.
That's a good question. I mean, right now, the review is for the building permit, not essentially for the
The other disciplines.
the other disciplines.
So what was your take on the increases?
I think they're reasonable for
Yeah.
what I see for other areas. I think they're setting them at $20 per thousand,
Yeah.
which is what I'm seeing in other areas.
Did you find the vote on that interesting?
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, because it was a 3-2 vote to pass. And if you watched it, Gordy, and maybe you'll have a chance to go back and watch it. If you watched it, Tony Archinsky was opposed, which he's kind of established himself as being opposed to a lot of these tax increases, and mostly because he hears from his constituency, and that's what he's doing. He's hearing from people who support him to not support these tax increases. So he's doing what he's put there to do, mixing it with the fact that he has to also balance the town's needs, financial needs, but also have to make sure you're taking care of your constituency, because that's what you're there for. But interesting vote was that it was actually a 2-2 vote. And it was about to fail based on the fact that it was a 2-2 vote. But Joe DeRocco just mumbled along, and in the middle of the vote was discussing different things about how and why he might not vote. Once the vote is started, Phil,
Right.
you shouldn't have any debate.
There really should be no more deliberation
Right.
on making arguments.
And who does
because
that land on?
It lands on the chairman.
Try
Should've
letting,
gavelled them down and said,
yeah, try letting Tony Archinsky or Heather Santiago Hutchins do that in the middle of a vote and see how fast the chairperson, who's Allison
cuts
Janess,
them off, yeah.
shuts them off. But Joe had the deciding vote, and Eddie Ayotte is his friend. So he waited long enough to make a decision, and he humbled back and forth, and then he voted yes. So it was 3-2. Interesting how the votes fell. Who were they?
So in favor were Heather Santiago
Yep.
Hutchins, Jennifer Kopczynski, and Joe DeRocco.
So Heather actually provided cover for Janest, because had Heather voted no, it would have failed.
It would have failed, and I think at that point,
Heather would have voted.
Allison would have voted yes.
Yes, because she has in the past. She's
Yes.
done that.
Well, I mean,
She's voted for
the-
increases
the-
when
the
she
top-
said she wouldn't.
The topic of a rubbish fee has come up, and I think she's kind of spoke favorably about
Right.
it. So I mean, she's not adverse to raising a fee.
Right. And as a alleged conservative Republican,
Yeah.
I don't see what that's all about. Let's see.
Now, mind you, building fees are essentially to support the building department, inspectional services. They're not really supposed to be
Is this for all permits?
making a profit on them.
Is this for all permitting too? Would go up?
No, just for building permits and anything within the building
Because I
department.
just did my windows recently.
So that permit actually is probably coming down based on
Because
ratios.
because the window company said they're going to charge me $80 for a permit fee, which is the normal across Massachusetts. When they went to Dracut, they said, "Oh, Dracut charges $300," so I had to pay an additional $220.
How many people actually go to the town hall and pull a permit when they change
well,
a door on the front
people
house?
like Gordy and myself make sure that we
You do,
pull the
because you have
permits.
to. Oh, I do too. I make sure that I'm pulling permits. But if you change a plug in your house, you need a permit.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, technically.
You know, but I'll bet, and I think the manager admitted it, that doesn't happen that often that they do.
No, and sometimes it's because of the cost. I mean, prior to this adjustment, if somebody wanted to put in a light fixture, the permit fee was $250, which was more than the actual work itself was worth.
Renee Young is excited for a Starbucks. And Steve Eno says that I think, in answer to Charlene Frischman, I think it's just the politically correct way to say low income, kind of like the unhoused instead of homeless.
But no, low income and affordable are two distinct things.
Yeah. Are traffic studies going to be required for the increase of those?
Oh,
those businesses
absolutely,
in that area?
absolutely. To be honest, I'm surprised that traffic study wasn't done beforehand so they could have it ready for the ZBA. Because that's just going to add time to
I thought they
their
said
hearing
they had
process.
mentioned they were going to be doing that.
Yeah, but so usually you'd want to have that beforehand so you can hand it off to the ZBA right away. So an applicant the town has 180 days to make it, to hold a public hearing. And they're supposed to close the public hearing within that time period. If the applicant grants an extension to the town, it can go beyond that. Now, mind you, if you don't have all the information that the town is asking for, typically you grant the extension because you want to get them that information. Other than that, the town can say, you haven't provided us the information we're looking for, denied.
Right.
So,
Right. So Renee Young made a comment here too, that the Board of Selectmen cannot hide from fees and/or tax increases for much longer. The fiscal projections for the town is not looking good. Well, this is where I will disagree with Renee, and that's okay. That's what the world is made of,
absolutely.
Right? When you talk about increasing fees, when is enough enough? Phil, when is enough enough?
It's a very fine gray line.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. I mean, I didn't vote for sales tax, for meals tax portion for the town that the town gets. I'm just saying that the town people just have enough. You have water, you have sewer, you have this, you have that. They're trying to institute a trash fee that has been failed. They pushed back on the what do you call it, stormwater management fee. There
Right.
was gonna be a
That
fee
was
for that.
was going to be a
How many
a set
fees
fee.
do we need, Gordy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the meals tax was good, just to bring in some revenue.
Yeah,
Because people.
it's a user fee. Yeah.
It's a user fee. So, but I think trash pickup is part of the taxes that you pay. There should not be an additional.
No, it shouldn't be an additional.
And I don't think the water drainage fee.
My God.
That's ridiculous.
They want to charge you for every
Square inch of your roof, your shingles, your driveway.
your driveway, your pool, your deck,
Yep.
your walkways.
So
They
that's a
wanna-
little ridiculous.
Anything that's considered an impervious,
Impervious.
Material.
Yeah. So we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about some school committee issues. We're running out of time. We got about 19 minutes left.
And the cannabis is going down too, obviously.
Of course it's going to go down. Of course it's going to. So Renee wants to know what's the alternative? Lay off people? Close the library? No, none of that's the alternative. How about watching out for some of these extras that we purchased? Like we had nearly a $12 million surplus, right? At one point during COVID, we had over a $12 million surplus, and now that's been drained down to under $6 million. That surplus is supposed to be for a rainy day.
Oh, the free cash.
The free
Well,
cash.
what they term free cash.
Free cash.
It's unencumbered.
Unencumbered free cash. I think when it rains, if you've been saying it from the beginning of time that that's a rainy day fund, then
When it rains, it's time.
it's rain. It's time to not throw the burden on the taxpayer and use some of that funds for the rainy day, right? But they're not thinking of that at all. They're thinking of keeping that as their one-time expenditures.
Yeah, and I've said a number of times that one of the biggest issues with Dracut is that the levy ceiling started too low when Proposition 2.5 was brought in.
And the Board of Selectmen, from the years that it started, could have been reserving some of that, where they could have raised taxes without going for an override.
Correct.
But they didn't.
Lowell oftentimes does that. They where they raise their tax, they raise it under the 2.5%.
Which creates a levy.
Which creates additional levy for the ceiling.
Right. I know I'm friendly with the mayor of Worcester, who's a Democrat and a great guy, by the way. But we've had many discussions about overrides and everything, and he says we don't have to go for overrides because we have a buffer in we don't go the full 2.5 every time.
Excess levy is what they refer to.
Yeah, they go to excess levy, and it's an automatic thing, and people expect it. So that's the route that they should have been going for years, and they didn't, and that's bad.
Yeah. It's a difficult question, and it's not something that just takes place. It gets answered in one meeting or a round of quick meetings. It's much more institutional and really gets at the need for economic development within the town.
Yes, and she agreed. Renee Young, school committee member, Renee Young agrees with us on the ceiling. It is, but the Board of Selectmen, like I said, and the management of the town has never built in that pad, and that's a shame. That really is a shame.
No, when we had Jim Duggan, I think we had somebody who knew how to shake the trees and bushes and look for economic development.
But they didn't.
They
can't.
We know how that
They can't, and that's the problem. And the current economic development team is not really an economic development team. It's more of a communications team.
I'll just give you this clue too. If we did get, let's just throw something out there, a big Walmart or something to come into town, it's going to get fought. No one's going to want Walmart in Dracut anyway. Right. So even if you get someone or an Amazon warehouse, if that ever came in maybe on 113 or something like that, people are going to fight up the wazoo.
Do you know what an Amazon?
This is a farming town. We don't want this business in here. They'll be the first one to complain.
An Amazon warehouse
distribution center
would be enormous for Dracut in terms of excise tax collections and all of the stuff that goes with it.
But it would never happen here.
It would be over $100 million project.
But it would never happen here because everyone would be
Well,
against
they fought the power plant.
Right.
When they fought the power plant. The power plant in itself back 25 years ago would have alleviated 99% of our issues.
And the gas, if you remember the gas pipeline that was going to come.
Right, that's another issue too. So, so Renee says that we shouldn't be using free cash for operating expenses, which is not true. I think that's what it's there for.
Well, you still need to maintain a certain amount of percentage or ratio of unencumbered cash.
Don't you do that? Don't you save a buffer? I save at least 6 months worth of
correct.
So that if something happens and the economy crashes or I lose a job,
got a rainy day fund.
I have my rainy day fund.
But if I have more than that, I'm not doing myself any service by keeping that extra.
No, correct. So let's talk briefly about the change in precinct voting. That's coming up. Jane Boyson, our town clerk, has a proposal before the Board of Selectmen coming up this week.
I certainly applaud her for bringing that forward, and I think it's long overdue.
I do too.
Even for only the 2 or 3 short years that they had everybody voting out of the Richardson School. I mean, that was, in my eyes, to some degree, and I think you brought it up, voter suppression.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
somebody in the eastern part of Dracut on.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's 4.5 miles for me to get to the.
Yeah.
But there are people even further than that from Scott Street. Street that would take them nearly a half hour to go vote.
Right.
Because they have to get to the other side of Dracut, which is no easy feat.
No, it isn't.
If you go from one side to the other, it's
you can
20
spend
minutes at least.
Easily.
So kudos, and that should be a unanimous vote to change that.
I would hope so.
I only wish that the East Dracut was closer to East Dracut. Maybe
Campbell School was fine with me.
Well, how about put it in the fire station?
A fire station?
In Jones Ave Fire Station. It's a little bit closer.
But do they have the room in it? I don't know.
I think they would. I don't know. They have parking in the rear of something.
Fox Farm.
Well, whatever. It's something else to think about.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it doesn't have to be a town-owned property. It could be
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would cost money.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit briefly about charter review, right? So the manager and the Board of Selectmen have been talking about charter review for a number of months now, and a true charter review is not the Board of Selectmen doing it, or appointing a committee to do it, or appointing one of your members of your staff, or asking the town's department heads what they think should be changed in the charter. The charter is set by the citizenry. And the original charter, and I think you pointed it out in a conversation we've had in the past, and I totally agree. Charter review should be a full-blown charter review with an elected charter commission that gathers the information from the neighborhoods and from the town to where they want to see their government go.
Yes, and the last time that was done was 1985.
That's 40 years ago.
40 years ago, and they have had these little snippets, if you want, where the Board of Selectmen have taken a look at it and say, oh, let's change this.
Well, they cherry-picked it to fix.
And strangely enough, right, one of the things that got changed is your experience and prerequisites to become town manager.
Right.
That got changed very quickly.
And it was a political thing.
It was.
That was a total political thing, and a charter review committee would not have done that.
No, I don't think so.
Not at all.
So, yeah, I mean, it
And how many people, let's be realistic, how many people in the town of Dracut have even read?
Oh, yeah, they don't.
Oh, very
The
few.
town-
And the charter's not that comprehensive for you to, it's a big picture thing, right? And one of the things that's important about the charter review would be elections. And there's a number of things that should happen with elections in town. Town meeting is another issue. We have now become nearly $100 million operation.
Yeah.
Right? We're approaching over 90, right?
115 in revenue, 115 million.
In revenue. So what's our budget?
The budget, I think, this year was 95 million.
95 million.
Yep.
So when I started back in the day here in Dracut, it was like around 60. And it was a pretty even split for the town side and the school side. Now the school side gets more than the town side.
It's edged up a bit, yeah.
It
It's
has gone over the
50%.
50% mark. It's more like 51 and approaching 52 pretty quick. So the town side is shrinking and the other side is growing. But the bottom line is that the charter review should be done by its citizenry. And I would hope that the Board of Selectmen and people around town would start talking to the Board of Selectmen to make it a full-blown charter review. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You afraid of people like Phil, myself, or Gordy getting on there and giving you ideas like maybe we should get rid of town meeting? Maybe we should, have more inclusiveness if we're going to be equitable across the town.
Well, I would say the elephant in the room, of course, is should Dracut become a city
I don't think
and have
so.
a city form of government?
No, I don't think so. I think you can have,
But I think that's a
You can
big
have that-
question.
You can have that conversation.
you
I
can
think
have
that's a
that-
big
You can have a
conversation that
conversation,
happens.
but I would never vote for have it to be a city. I would make it a town council, and I would make it bigger, make it more. I would want to support more involvement in your neighborhood. So much like Lowell, and I think there's a lawsuit coming down the pike. Not saying there is one now, but I think there's a lawsuit coming down the pike where people are being disenfranchised by many things. Most of your Board of Selectmen live in West Dracut.
Yeah,
They live in the Collinsville area. East Dracut gets zero representation. There's not even a playground in East Dracut. There's nothing on that side of
To
town.
be honest, every time a developer for a subdivision offers a playground, the Department of Public Works in the past has said, no, we don't want to take care of it.
I think Renee says, or make it a representative town meeting. I'm not even in favor of that, Renee, because then you get all your special interests running for town representatives, and you really have the same thing you have now, that the town really isn't being represented by its constituents.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what that could be. So we have 9 precincts, so
Right.
20 to 30 representatives from each precinct.
Right.
You would need that. So now you're looking at 180 to 270 people to be comparable to the quorum that we need now, which is
Right.
250.
Right, and if you make it smaller than that, it becomes much more political.
Oh, very much so.
Much more political. But the
And
bottom
mind
li-
you, each of those representatives now has a constituency that they have to speak to. So
Right.
you're going to go from the 2.5-hour town meeting that we have currently
3 days.
To 3 days, easily 3 days.
Yeah, but that's why I think that you expand the Board of Selectmen, you can realign the precincts and make it 5, and then make 3 or 4 at large. Now you have 9 members of that board, and you have a better representation, and you make them elected together the same time. Then you can't have a group, one particular group, a Collinsville group or an East Dracut group, that's going to control that election. Because the way we stagger it now, there's enormous control. And the way the turnout goes now, there's enormous control in who gets elected to the Board of Selectmen and the school board. I mean, I think I don't know how the school board.
So I would even offer that the planning board, which is currently appointed, that perhaps should be taken a look at to become an elected position.
I agree.
In many of the communities around us, the planning board is elected.
So what do you think about the resignation of Joe Wilkie from the school board?
Interesting.
Kind of an abrupt
Yes.
end to a career.
Yeah, I mean, usually you hear somebody saying because of, family commitments or, health concerns or business concerns, or my business is getting much more hectic.
He only had
or traveling.
1 year left, right?
He had 1 year left that he had, maybe Renee can give us some insight
so
on
his
that.
term was ending this coming May
Right,
24th.
so it's only another 8 months, but
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Renee. The budget will not be passed in 2 minutes. I mean, there's never a question about the budget here, but very rarely is there any kind of mention of the budget because the finance committee has already gone over it and the school
Yeah,
committee.
so within a town meeting, if you have a representative town meeting, I suspect the town budget would get dissected
Yeah,
even more.
but even though if you expand the Board of Selectmen, it should get more dissected, and you put the responsibility on the Board of Selectmen to pass that budget and be responsible to the constituency like Lowell does. Everything that, that Lowell and Methuen is a town, actually. It's a,
Well, its government form is a city.
Well, it
and they
is,
are the
but-
city known as the town of Methuen.
right. But you can keep it your rural aspect. by
really
doing
what
that.
should happen is each district should have a
represent-
selectman.
Right. And therefore, now Gordy can go to that person whom he knows.
Right.
And has a relationship with and complain about the
Or
street
people
being
can come up
cracked.
to my door and say, "Hey, Gordy, what's going on with this in our
That's right.
neighborhood?"
That's right.
And I said, "I don't know. Let me go check into it."
And Gordy would be a responsible
Follow-up.
representative
Follow-up.
down there, right? Exactly.
That's how you really need to do it.
Yeah.
For the best way to do it.
So Joe told the committee why, but she doesn't feel right to share his reasons if he doesn't want to share it publicly. Well, Renee, I appreciate your candidness about that, and if somebody comes to me and asks me not to share something,
But
and
there is
I-
a reason.
and
There's a reason.
I would respect that also. But the bottom line is, it leaves a cloud for many people out there that voted for him over the course of the many years, and those that didn't vote for him over the course of many years, saying to speculate why he left.
I mean, my feeling would be that you owe it to your constituency if you're stepping down to let them know why, not
Right.
just, oh, by the way, this Friday I'm resigning from from a particular board.
Right, and it was a pretty abrupt and pretty.
It was.
And if it's a health issue, you don't have to go into specifics. You just say,
Right.
or
So
wanna
I
spend more
wrote a
time
piece
with
for
my family.
So I wrote a piece for the Inside Lowell, and I put some speculation out there, and I got some pushback on it, which was fine, and I'm hoping to get a couple people to come on in the future and talk about it. But the bottom line is who's running for that seat, and that seat. When I say running, there is a process now, and that process in the nutshell is, Phil, give it to us.
Well, I believe it typically is advertised for a certain amount of,
It's supposed to be advertised for 14 days.
for 14 days.
But we know that doesn't always happen on
So,
other
yeah,
appointments.
and then it's a joint appointment by the school committee and the Board of Selectmen.
Right. Now, that process could also be addressed in your charter, that anybody that resigns, the seat goes to the runner-up. That makes it easy. You don't have to have an election. You don't have to have a political joint
Unless the
meeting.
runner-up
and-
refuses to take
Unless
it.
the runner-up refuses, then you go to the next subject. But those in contention for this are highly regarded people in town, right? Many of them. Alyssa Nazaro was one that I mentioned. Rob Shepherd was another that I mentioned. You were a candidate for a period of time. Who else was in there? Richard Silvio. And I mean, there were others that were mentioned, and the votes were trying to be lined up. It was it quickly has become a situation that's viewed as being a political
Yeah.
appointment. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Any comments? Anything about Joe's career on the board of the school board?
I mean, I served with him on the town manager screening committee, and I found him to be very good on that committee.
How about you? You have anything nice to say?
I'll reserve.
You have no, yeah, because we know what your history is with Mr. Wilkie. But you know, the bottom line is, he served for 11 years, and he did a job that he believed was the right thing to do. He didn't talk to us very much.
No, and I think when he was first running, and we were trying to get him to come on a show, I had said to him that we can either talk with you or talk about you. And,
Yeah,
you know,
well, that was
have,
when it was-
have it the way that you want.
But that was the show. That show was the other show,
Yeah,
not this
yeah.
show. But
Correct.
he has not had, and I have had a relationship with Joe for many years prior to him running. In fact, he came to me for some advice. And I'm not going to talk about what that subject was all about, but he came to me for some advice. He probably will deny that ever happened, but I can take a lie detector test and pass that one pretty easily, you know. But the bottom line is that he doesn't consider us viable,
Yeah.
which is a mistake, because then we get to say what we believe, right?
Right.
Without being told or without having any interaction with public officials. Like, you know, if we get to say what we want to say and
Yeah.
what we believe and what we think
So
is true.
one interesting point is that somebody had contacted me wondering if I was truly interested in working on the school committee. And I said yes, and this person said that, well, you know, it's a lot of work. And I said, when have you ever seen me shy away from
Right.
doing a lot of work?
Right. But we can't. We'd like to get more into that subject, but we've run out of time.
Oh, geez.
To be honest with you, we've run out of time. Poor Gordy had a bathroom situation. He was going to talk about
No,
what we.
BB gun.
But you got the BB guns. Yeah, the BB guns. So we'll get to that. Maybe we'll have Gordy write a little piece to put it on our page.
Sure.
There you go. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future, live. But today we're doing it, like I said, taping it. We appreciate everyone that joined us today. We had almost 45 people at one point.
Yeah.
That come in and out, and we've had a lot of interaction, and it's been a good day. Just a little reminder for everybody: Channel 99, which is our government channel, has been changed to Channel 6 here at DATV, and we just want to throw that out there so that if you're looking for public meetings on 99, it's now on Channel 6, and we'll get into that a little bit more. We didn't get the notice until it happened. And it was not right.
Comcast
so
made the switch on us.
Comcast made the switch on us. So, Gordy, take us away here.
All right, folks, thanks for watching our show. We really appreciate it. It's great to have you guys talk to us online on Facebook. Remember, we're also on YouTube at What's Happening Dracut if you want to catch our old shows. And when it's Wednesday and it's 6:30, it's What's Happening Dracut.
Good
night, Dracut.
afternoon, everybody. Enjoy your day.